you.
So no splaining necessary.
There you
Okay,
go.
I'm gonna keep that going just in case.
Okay, are we going,
All right, connection is up.
connection up?
Okay.
Are we being seen? Okay, we just want to inform everyone that we weren't able to connect with YouTube right away. We did begin with, prior to the calling meeting order, prayer offered by Pastor Will and then the Pledge of Allegiance. So, at this time, I'll call the meeting to order. We already did the pledge. Approve the agenda.
So moved.
Okay, and just second.
Second.
And we're going to note on the approval of the minutes on item number 2, the first reading of ordinance 761 subdivision, there is just more or less a note revision, and we'll, and that note revision in there deals with the water, street, and sewer, and it basically deals with who's responsible for payment of those improvements to the area or the putting in of new lines. So with that, a motion has been made and seconded to approve tonight's agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Public input.
Oh, we better do the minutes.
Yeah, we didn't do the
Yeah,
minutes, we
excuse
did
me,
the
yes, sir.
agenda.
Approve the minutes from our February 3rd meeting, pages 1 through 2 and 3.
Move to approve. Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, motion been made and second to approve the minutes from February 3rd. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you. Now, public input.
It was brought to my attention that we don't have a license plate on the police car. Are we gonna get one on there? Do we have a reason for that?
Huh,
I'm pretty sure the plates came in the mail. City plate, right?
I assume that's what's going on up there.
Oh. Wonder if it had to do with
Getting
the
fixed.
repairs and then they didn't put that part back on. I
Well,
don't know.
are they gonna put
Ooh, we better find out.
a guard in front of the car? When I
I think
went
that
out
was the
today,
plan,
out there, and you're right, I didn't see one on the front anyway. But I didn't know if they were going to put a,
Kind of a push bar on
yeah,
that
on the
day.
front, if that's during the repairs,
Mm-hmm.
if that was left off. We'll check it, we'll find out, okay?
Perfect.
Anything else?
And I'm sorry, I was attending to a text message with a viewer. Who made the first and second for the minutes? To approve?
I made the motion. Landon
Landon.
did the
Thank
second.
you.
Okay? All right, any other public input? Okay, hearing none, we'll go to the new business. South Dakota Municipal League District 5 meeting will be held in Miller, March 19th, and all the particulars are found on pages 4 through 5.
I had almost forgot that we were hosting that.
Yes, you guys volunteered us at last year's meeting.
Yeah,
Well, I'm gonna share with you, I didn't because I know who has to give the welcoming part of the, of the meeting, which I don't mind, yeah, so, anyway.
I think we'll be around to go,
Yeah.
so.
We don't need any action on that. That's just
No, that's
information.
just for
Yeah.
public information.
Just please be sure to let us know by the 4th if you can't,
By the
plan
4th?
on attending. Yep.
And our employees are invited too as
Yep.
well,
I don't think we have anything going, so,
We should be around then.
yeah,
yeah. And-
put us down.
And their spouses, is that open to them too as well?
Yes.
Yes, so we're clear with that, all right? All right, moving on, first reading of ordinance 761, dealing with the subdivision. And this is it, ordinance 761. An ordinance to amend the ordinance number 449 and 674 of the ordinances of the city of Miller, South Dakota, be it ordained by the Common Council of the City of Miller, South Dakota, that in the Miller Municipal Code, Chapter 34, subdivisions, Article 1, in general, and Article 3, design standards be revised, and Chapters 34, Article 4, improvements be repealed and replaced as follows. Article 1 in general, Section 34-7, violation penalty. This is paragraph number 2. It is a violation to alter final city approval plans pursuant to this chapter without prior approval by the City Council. Such violation shall result in a Class 2 misdemeanor and a fine and a $500 fine as established in South Dakota Codified Law 9-19-3. Cost incurred by the city to correct any violation shall be reimbursed to it by the developer and may be assessed against the real property involved pursuant to South Dakota Codified Law 9-43. Article 3, Design Standards, Section 34-64, Streets and Alleys. Minor residential streets shall be planned as to be discouraged through traffic. Permitted cul-de-sacs shall not be longer than 400 feet and shall terminate within a turnaround having a diameter of not less than 80 feet and not more than 120 feet. Article 4, Improvements. Section 34-91, Developer and the City Responsibilities. It shall be the responsibility of the developer to provide engineering designs, specification, and data as required by this chapter and approved by the Common Council. The final construction engineering plan shall be reviewed and are subject to the approval by the city engineer at the expense to the city. The city may provide at the expense to the developer equal to 10% above the actual cost to the city, the materials and special rented or leased equipment used to assist the developer with the actual improvements. Once installed, all utilities shall become property and responsibility of the city. Certain required improvements are as follows. Staking boundaries. The developer is responsible for staking of boundaries. The external boundaries and corners of each block and lot shall be monumented by iron rods, pipes, or pins not less than 1/2 inch in diameter and extended at least 24 inches below grade. B, street grading and surfacing. All major and secondary streets and alleys located entirely within the boundary of the subdivision shall be graded in accordance with city requirements. The subdivider shall submit to the council his or her plan for connecting to the existing streets. The final street construction engineering plans, as required by this chapter, shall be subject to the approval by the city. All such streets and alleys shall be constructed by a contractor retained and paid by the developer and approved by the city. Sanitary sewer. The subdivider shall submit to the council his plan for connecting with a trunk line to the existing system. All costs associated with the lift station will be the responsibility of the developer. All such sanitary sewers shall be constructed by the contractor, retained and paid by the developer, and approved by the city. Water mains. The subdivider shall submit to the council his plans for connecting to the existing system. All such water mains shall be constructed by a contractor, retained and paid by the developer, and approved by the city. Storm sewers. The subdivider shall submit to the council his plans for connecting to the existing system. All such storm sewers shall be constructed by the contractor and retained and paid by the developer and approved by the city. This being the first reading. I misspoke too at the beginning, those and paid, the additions were in the sanitary sewer, water main, and also the storm sewers.
So was the "and paid" added by the attorney? The retained and paid? Oh.
Yes,
See, I don't have
Mine
that on
doesn't,
the,
mine doesn't say that.
No,
it does
it-
not,
not,
but it needed to be in
it
there.
needs to be added to it.
it needs to be added
Yeah.
to it. Okay,
Consistent
retained
with-
and paid.
Because that being, that's
B.
more, I think, more in line to what
Okay,
was expected and without being questioned who pays for it.
okay. Yeah, because I noticed everybody else was looking up too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay? Okay, this being the first reading, the second reading will take place on at our March 3rd meeting, so no action is required by the council until then.
With what the state government passed for clarifying language, I think we need to switch all the his to his or her plans for in the legal, don't we?
I don't know if they
It's
pa-
it's purely
yeah, I know,
paperwork.
I
It's
get, in
just-
fact, I was thinking that when it, right, because in the first, if you look at the first one, as far as this street grading, it does indicate his or her plans. But when we get down to the sanitary sewer, water mains, and storm sewer, it's just his plans.
Yeah. So is anything, this doesn't have anything for the laying out what's, because it's still saying improvements. Are we going, is there gonna be anything in there as far as making it clear and cut of new construction? And we're not just talking about,
Okay, so when you read the definition of improvements within the chapter, it is understood that it is involving new improvements.
Yep.
okay,
After they're in place, they're the city's baby after that.
Yeah.
Yes.
right,
And again, the reason for that, and for those, and this is, just more or less for the record, is to make sure that the equipment put in is of a certain grade, that the city would want to take it over and to be able to maintain it.
Right.
So that's why any material that is installed has to have the approval of the city
Yeah.
and the city engineer. Did you want to add her to that?
I think we should. I mean, the state already did it with all of their ordinances.
I don't know if they did.
They passed a law that that they were doing that.
Did they pass it?
Cause we,
So-
Okay,
Or you could just say the plans,
right, it's, and
cross
it's,
out his and put the plans.
and it's nothing we gotta spend much time on, it was said once his and hers, and then the other ones was just his.
okay.
In C, D, and E, if you just crossed out his and put the,
Right.
that solve our problem?
Did take care of that.
Just on C, the contractor. Just on C, D, and E, you said?
Yep,
Yeah,
right in the first line, each one. Through council and.
yeah. We can leave his or her on the
Yeah,
first.
just- Yeah, but on those C, D, and E, just cross out his and put the.
Okay,
So on this amendment, we're just talking about that the utilities will be then the city's responsibility afterwards. That's really
Afterwards.
all I got.
And the developer has to pay to put them in
yes,
Okay.
yes.
by means approved by the
Yeah.
council.
Okay.
And what the city wants to do is have a working relationship with the developer. And what we don't want to have happen is, something get ahead of the city where we're incurring an expense with not, and not having the return on it with regard to the development. It's just more or less, so the expense in that situation would be by the developer. That's why it's paid for there, so.
Do we have any concern that putting all that on the developer makes projects prohibitive?
It 100% will be that way in practice.
I'm
You
thinking
see
too.
what I'm- See what I'm asking?
I do. I'm thinking when, and I'm assuming here, and you're, have probably, you know, I have better background and knowledge on this. I would venture to say that a developer coming for a proposal to do something of this sort would have things in line, where he's comfortable and confident that development will be taking place. You know, that homes would be built or whatever.
Yeah, my comment was more to the line of the cost part of it, is whether or not you add all of those expenses solely onto the developer, whether or not that then makes that development cost prohibitive, because you've got such an upfront cost there.
And I know why it was put in originally, because it was amended probably 15 years ago.
I think it was back in 2016.
Okay, and at that time, the city's budget was way different than the city's budget is now. The city can't afford to add a bunch of developments right now the way it was written before. But I'm not against having something in the verbiage of saying, because we have a housing committee, don't we? Or housing,
There's probably your zoning committee.
but I think we have like a housing development, or what am I thinking of?
There's a housing committee,
There's a
just
housing.
housing.
Yeah, so I mean, where if you put in the verbiage of the city has the right to assist with funding of new developments by approval of committee and city council in accordance with the city's budget at that time, where if we feel as though that it is a good thing for the city of Miller to help with, and we financially can do that, and we're gonna get a return, and it'll be good for the development of the town, then yes, the city can help at that time, but you just don't leave the door open either of saying the city has to pay for all of it. So it's kind of a give and take, where what Will's saying is the city will never pay for anything is gonna be counterproductive on the growth, but at the same time, we don't wanna leave ourselves open up to where we are financially responsible for all of the new developments that
So
are
then
already
how do
zoned.
you pick and choose
Yeah.
which developer you're going to assist and which one you're not?
That's a good question,
By the
'cause-
viability of the development, I would say, and what evidence that developer can show that it's gonna be a viable development and beneficial to the city. I think there needs to be at least some avenue for
the city to
said
help.
developer to request funding assistance from the city in utility construction.
I could see like if there's like some kind of housing grants or something like that, that they would have to go through the city, we could help them with that. You
Because
know, maybe
before we
help
weren't doing
apply for it.
anything, and then 10 years ago it said yes, the city was gonna help, and then we're going
Yeah.
back to for tighter budget, so no, we're not gonna help
Yeah.
at all. If
Well,
you
I'm
just put
just-
it in there, then we can be done with the deal of saying the city is not going, we're not
Mm-hmm.
solely responsible, but if funds allow and we can help with the development, then we have the option to already do that, instead of breaking ordinances and just giving people money.
You're playing a lot less favorites if you aren't breaking ordinances to help with that funding. And I think if you insist that the developer pays for the installation of all the utilities, you're also insisting there are no new developments.
It's just that we have quite a bit of expense now, a lot of debt that we're trying to pay off.
And that's why if we leave it up where it's up to the city, we're gonna say, we do not have the money to be paying for developments right now. But in 15 years, when some of these surcharges come off and loans are paid off and the city is more flush with stuff, then we have the right to help with the growth when the general fund is a little more stable. That's my only thought, because I see it on both sides, where you write it one way and there won't be any growth,
Yeah,
and then you write it the other way and the city is really sticking their necks out on, because really the only thing that's stopping them right now is zoning, where if for whatever reason, something like, oh yeah, we'll zone it residential, but all of a sudden it's a 40 lot addition that we financially cannot do it. If you don't stop them at the zoning part of it, then the city has to pay for it, the way it was wrote before this.
and we definitely couldn't afford that.
So if people aren't up on top, depending what the council's at that time, if the people in the house or the zoning committee aren't aware of that, then we could honestly get in really big trouble financially if we're not looking out for it. Do I ever foresee a 40 home development coming on Miller? No. If that happens, obviously something great's happening in Miller, but
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, I mean, I'm for development. I think that's great, but just I'm looking at what we have got right now that we have to pay off.
and I 100% agree. That's why I say just give us the right to if we financially can, but that is our right to assess our financials at the time of somebody requesting, so.
Give the developer some sort of avenue to request funding, plead his or her case. Tell us why it is in the city's best financial interest to assist with.
And then we could be in more of a, to piggyback on, then it'd be more of the planning where we're a part of that development plan where, no, we can't help this year, but if you do this stuff, whatever, and then I think we can work it into the budget next year, the year after, and then,
What struck me, Tom, is when you said that we're trying to work with
Yeah.
developers, and C, D, and E here really scream at me, we're not working with you. We're making you have to come up with this up front, and then somehow be able to get those costs into what you're trying to sell. That, I think you're making that impossible.
And I think one of the things with regard to the language that was implemented in the first reading was just more or less to protect the city from somebody coming in and say, we want to develop this, but like I said, the development doesn't take place in a manner where it's beneficial to the city, where we're left holding the bag with a huge investment, and that can get kicked down the road 4 or 5 years. I'm just using those years as an incident. So I think that's where we need to show we are, but yet we're still trying to protect the financial stability of the city. I don't want to make it sound like we can't afford things, but we have to.
What if you left the language in there the way it is and then added a paragraph on the bottom that said, however, it is permissible for said developer to petition or request funding assistance from the city on some sort of appeals process, et cetera. So that keeps the basis of that language the same, but does give an opportunity for the city to be helpful when it's applicable.
because I'd 100% agree with Susan that right now, we are not in a development stage right now at all. But the city won't always be that way. So I just was thinking of making an ordinance that is a common middle ground of both sides of the fence, so it doesn't have to get amended every 10 years depending on what the city's financial status is at that time.
I'm just going to say this because somebody said something that got me to think about it. Let's say that we have 2 developers, and both of them sent plans, but we're limited with regard to the resources we have to accommodate both, or to choose, we may have to choose one or the other, and we better be in pretty doggone good position why we're going to say yes to one
Yeah.
and no to another.
And I think in that hypothetical, that would be on each of those two developers to present and show their best case as to why their development does have promise, interest in it, you know, why
Better-
that is financially beneficial to the city.
Okay.
I think then you're not playing favorites, who's got the better development, which one's gonna be more financially stable?
Okay,
Well, I think that's gonna come down to whether they already have someone lined up to put houses in there, I guess, yeah.
And that'd be good, because then all of a sudden, we're charging utilities for those houses right
That's what I
away.
mean, Yep.
You know, if those developers have a set of letters of intent from potential buyers or builders.
Yep.
That makes a huge difference, rather than, well, I think somebody would wanna do it, you know.
So maybe make that part of the application process. You know, when the city applies for grants, we have to go through a huge, long deal where we get those letters of intent. We present our financials, we present the plans to the entity that we are asking funds from.
Yep.
So almost implement an application process.
An application / appeal to deviate from the main part of this ordinance.
And then that's gonna weed out a lot of, I don't wanna say dreamers, but like people that have all their plans in place versus people that it's gonna be a long drawn out process before the city would ever actually recover any of the funds that are given out.
okay. Now, okay, and I totally agree. I mean, I do, to have some type of language in there that if some type of a working relations or assistance can be helped, that we're gonna do everything that we can, but yet still protect the, in both ways, the interests of the community, both moving forward and also the financial aspect of it. Now, having said that, do we want to have that as part of this ordinance? If so, we kind of nix tonight's first reading, and we'll have the first reading,
I think we should send it back to committee and address that issue.
okay?
Come up with some language along the lines of what you're talking, and let it be allowable for the city if we can, if we can afford to do this,
Yeah.
allow the city to do that, or whoever the city council is at that time, or whoever's in charge.
And a lot of, maybe not all of it, but some of those expensive could be just using our equipment.
In
and
kind.
Manpower, in-kind resources to help facilitate that project. Okay?
And if you need a motion to send it back to committee, I would make that motion.
I would second.
Okay? Discussion.
I would like to carry on with discussion. I know I shouldn't because
You're
I'm
fine.
just sitting here, but
Oh, the motion's been made, you can discuss now.
Yeah.
just be cognizant that construction season's coming up, and we have someone who wants to move forward with the development, and with the way the ordinance reads right now, and where we stand financially, we can't do it. So, if we were to pass this tonight and do a second reading next, the earliest it will become effective is March 28th. Just be aware of how long it takes for ordinances to take effect, and just how soon construction might start and the planning process before that even happens.
Okay, so what you're saying, we can go ahead and, keep tonight's first reading, and if we want to add another,
It would have to be a new first reading.
Does anybody have any issues
Maybe you could,
with the ordinance right now?
other than it not allowing.
Because we can always amend and add to it.
Right.
yes,
So we're good with, other than a few things, but that doesn't have to go back to committee for what we talked about wanting to change of what is written in here right now.
Right.
I guess, and it doesn't matter. I would say then it would be a two-part motion with that in mind. Or I guess we have a motion on the table, we have to
Okay,
act
yeah.
on it.
And with any other further discussion? Now, what could
I would
happen?
withdraw my motion.
Okay, okay, I was
Okay.
gonna
That's
ask,
all
we
right
can
with my
rescind,
seconder.
we can rescind the motion.
There we go.
Okay,
So I would make a motion to approve, the first,
but wait a second.
Oh,
We
we're in the
can-
first reading.
We can't approve this tonight, this is only the
This is
first
just a
reading.
reading.
okay,
So we'll go ahead with the first reading, as
No.
written, as stated,
Yep.
and with the idea that we will come forward with regard to,
cause is that gonna be another ordinance, or is that
It
just
would
gonna be a?
another ordinance,
Okay,
We
That-
just make an ordinance to replace this one?
or add to
add
it.
Add
to
to
it,
it.
it would add to it.
Paragraph.
I would
Because like you
think
said,
add
right
to it would be
now, right
better.
now, we're not financially ready to do that yet anyway.
correct.
But we do need to change what we have now.
So we'd have a first reading, this is a first reading, next time we'd have a second
Mm-hmm.
reading. We can always add a first reading to the next ordinance to
Yes.
add to
Yeah.
the section.
To an amendment
Correct.
to it, yeah.
And then we would be a little more covered for construction season.
Yep.
Yes,
Okay?
So,
we're doing it in pieces.
Clear as mud.
But, you know, and again, I'll go back, it's a twofold situation. We want to promote development, but yet we want to,
be protected.
you know, keep the things in check with regard to the responsibility of the city getting too far ahead of a situation, so. Okay?
Do you need to remake your,
He just withdrew it.
okay, so we have to do another one? Good, okay.
We can do that one later.
Are we okay with the rescinding of the motion?
Yep.
Okay, all right. Okay, having said that,
So are you gonna do a motion to approve the first reading and move it to a second reading, which does
Do we-
not?
I thought we didn't do
require-
that.
I
We-
don't, I think you just read it,
yeah,
and
I
Yeah.
don't think,
we don't do any approval
We
till.
do, we need a motion to approve to go to this and move it
Okay,
to the
all
second
right.
reading. There's
Oh,
no roll
here we
call,
go.
it's just a
Patrick was
basic
gonna-
oh, that's
motion
right. Yes,
to move
yeah,
it to the
yes,
second
yes,
reading.
Yes,
I'll make a motion to approve, the first reading of, ordinance number 761 subdivisions.
Second.
discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you for that, because I know the next time it will be a roll call vote. All right.
So I feel like it's that close to construction season.
Entertain a motion to approve the bills.
So
So
moved.
Second?
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Bills are approved.
Make a motion that we move into executive session for discussion of personnel pursuant to SDCL 12521 with the intent of going over lifeguard applicants.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Opposed, no. We're in executive session.
At 7:35.
Yeah. Good discussion, you guys. Great discussion.